All right. Mm-mm-mm. All right. We're going to jump right into it. I did not make a video yesterday. Oops. I really got to get my life together, but it's okay. We're going to get it together. Like, for example, this video is supposed to be done on the 1st. Like, girl, come on, get it together. It's okay, though. So it's day 27. Day 27, we're going to be reading 2 Kings. Day 27, 2 Kings. Oh, snap, I didn't even cross off some of these. Period. 2 Kings 5 through 15. 5 through 15. I'm going to post a picture real quick. Tell people to join us if they can. Oh, let me zoom in. Okay. Let's get it going. Let's get it going. I mean, I know I'm really behind, but look at how much we've read so far. Like, period. So, 5. All right. Says Naaman healed of leprosy. Says, now Naaman was a commander of the army and the king of Aram. He was a great, oh Lord, I'm trying to get situated. Hold on. I have these fuzzy socks on, and on the carpet they're like slipping. Okay. He was a great man in the sight of his master and highly regarded. Because through him the Lord has given victory, they went to the Jordan and began to cut. Okay, to Aram, he was a valiant soldier, but he had leprosy. Now bands from Aram have gone out, or should have been Aram. Maybe I said Aram. Had gone out and taken captive of a young girl from Israel, and she served Naaman's wife. Let me take this off because I don't like it when it's on the back of my neck. She said to her mistress, if only Master would see the prophet who was in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. Naaman went to his master and told him what the girl from Israel said. By all means, go, the king of Aram replied, or should be Aram. I'm saying Aram. I will send a letter to the king of Israel. So Naaman left, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. The letter that he took to the king of Israel read, with this letter that I am sending my servant Naaman to you, so that you may cure him of his leprosy. As soon as the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his robes and said, am I God? Can I kill and bring back to life? Why does this fellow send someone to me to be cured of his leprosy? See how he is trying to pick a quarrel with me? When Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his robes, he sent him this message. Why have you torn your robes? Have the man come to me, and he will know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman went with him with his horses and chariots and stopped at the door of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, go wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed. But Naaman went away angry and said, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand over the spot and cure me of my leprosy. Are not Abana and Par, the rivers of the Damascus, better than any of the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be cleansed? So he turned off and went in rage. His servants went to him and said, my father, if the prophet has told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then will he tell you, wash and be cleansed? So he went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, as the man of God told him, and his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. Then Naaman and all of his attendants went back to the man of God. He stood before him and said, now I know that there is no God in all of this world except for in Israel. Please accept now a gift from your servant. The prophet answered, as surely as the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will not accept any such thing. Even though he urged him, he refused. If you will not, please let me, your servant, be given as much earth as a pair of mules can carry, for your servant will never make burnt offerings and sacrifices to any other God but the Lord. But may the Lord forgive your servant for this one thing. When my master enters the temple of the Rimmon to bow down, when he is leaning on my arm, and I bow there also with him, I bow down in the temple of Rimmon. May the Lord forgive your servant for this. Go in peace, Elisha said. After Naaman had traveled some distance, Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said to himself, my master was too easy on Naaman, this Aramean, by not accepting from him what he brought. And surely as the Lord lives, I will run after him and get something from him. So he hurried after Naaman, and when he saw him running toward him, he got down from his chariot to meet him. Is everything okay? He said, everything is all right. My master sent me to say, 2 young men from the company of the prophets have just come to me in the hill country of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 sets of clothing. By all means, take 2 talents, he said. He urged Gehazi to accept them, and he tied up 2 talents of silver in 2 bags with 2 sets of clothing. He gave them 2 of his servants, and they carried him ahead of Gehazi. When he came to the hill, he took the things from the servant and put them away in his house. He sent the men away, and they left. Then he went in and stood before his master Elisha. He said, where have you been, Gehazi? Your servant didn't go anywhere, he answered. But Elisha said to him, was my spirit not with you when the man got down from his chariot to meet you? Is this the time to take money or accept clothes, olive groves, vineyards, flocks, herds, or men servants and maid servants? Naaman's leprosy will cling to you and your descendants forever. Then Gehazi went from Elisha's presence, and he was leprous as white as snow. Wow. So, first thing is first. Sometimes we want, y'all see how this is like all messed up. I need to cut it off. Anyway, sometimes we be wanting God to like do some major miraculous thing, and really what he wants us to do is like so simple. Something simple. The hardest thing I think for us to do is to obey. Like, yeah, go down to the river and you bathe yourself 7 times. Then he was like, first of all, the rivers that's by where I'm at or wherever got better water than here, so why would I even bathe there? Like, that's goofy. Yeah. I would talk about Gehazi, but I think we all understand. First of all, it wasn't even his blessing, so I don't even know why he went back to go get something from him. And if he didn't want it, then nothing that he didn't want it. Stop being greedy. Number 6, the company of the prophets said to Elisha, look, the place where we met you was too small for us. Let us go to the Jordan where each of us will get a pole and build a place there for us to live. And he said, go. Then one of them said, will you please come with one of your servants? Elisha said, I will. And he went with them. They went down to the Jordan and began to cut down trees. As one of them was cutting down a tree, an iron axe fell into the water. Oh, my Lord, it was borrowed. The man of God said, where did it fall? When he showed them the place, Elisha cut a stick and threw it in there and made the iron float. He said, lift it out. And the man reached out his hand and took it. Elisha traps the blinded Arameans. Now the king of Aram was at war with Israel. After conferring with his officers, he said, I will set up my camp in such and such place. The man of God sent word to the king of Israel, beware of passing that place because the Arameans are down there. So the king of Israel, let me just swallow this because, okay, now I can swallow it. Okay. Okay. So the king of Israel checked on this place and indicated where on the place indicated by the man of God. Time and again, Elisha warned the king so that he was on guard in such places. This enraged the king of Aram. He summoned his officers and demanded of them, will you not tell me which of us is on the side of the king of Israel? None of us, my lord, the king, said one of his officers, but Elisha the prophet who was in Israel tells the king of Israel every word that you speak in your bedroom. Go find out where he is, the king ordered, so I can send men to capture him. The report came back, he is in Dothan. Then he sent horses and chariots and a strong force there. They went by night and surrounded the city. When the man of God, got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. Oh, my lord, what shall we do? The servant asked. He said, don't be afraid. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And Elisha prayed, O Lord, open his eyes so that he may see. Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he opened and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. As the enemy came down toward him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, "Strike these people with blindness." So he struck them with blindness as Elisha had asked. Elisha told them, "This is not the road and this is not the city. Follow me and I will lead you to the man you are looking for." And he led them to Samaria. After they entered the city, Elisha said, "Lord, open the eyes of these men so they can see." And the Lord opened their eyes, and they looked, and they were inside Samaria. Then the kings of Israel saw them, and he said, "Shall I kill them, my father? Shall I kill them?" He said, "Do not kill them. Would you kill men that you have captured with your own sword and bow? Set food and water before them so they may eat and drink and then go back to their master." So he prepared a great feast for them. And after they finished eating and drinking, he sent them away and they returned to their master. So the bands from the Aram stopped raiding Israel's territory. Verse 6. So it says, sometime later, Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, mobilized his entire army and marched up and laid siege to Samaria. There was a great famine in the city, and the siege lasted so long that a donkey's head sold for 80 shekels of silver, and a quart of a cob of seed pods for 5 shekels. As the king of Israel was passing by on the wall, a woman cried to him, help me, my lord, my king." The king replied, "If the Lord does not help you, where can I get help for you? From the threshing floor, from the wine press?" Then he asked her, "What's the matter?" She said to me, "Give up your son so we may eat him today, and tomorrow we'll eat my son." So we cooked my son and ate him. And the next day I said to her, "Give up your son so we can eat him." But she had him hidden. Then when the king heard of the woman's words, he tore his robes and he went along the wall, and the people looked, and there underneath he had sackcloth on his body. He said, "May God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if the head of Elisha the son of Shaphat remains on his shoulders today." Now Elisha was sitting in his house, and the elders were sitting with him. The king sent a messenger ahead of him, but before he arrived, Elisha said to the elders, "Don't you see how the murderer is sending someone to cut off my head? Look, when the messenger comes, shut the door and hold it shut against him. Is not the sound of his master's footsteps behind him?" While he was talking to them, the messenger came to him, and the king said, "This disaster is from the Lord. Why shall I wait for the Lord any longer?" Elisha said, Here's the word of my Lord. This is what the Lord says. About this time tomorrow, a seah of flour will sell for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel at the gate of Samaria. Mhm. The officer on whose arm the king was leaning said to the man of God, "Look, even if the Lord should open the floodgates of heaven, should this happen?" And he said, "You will see it with your own eyes," as he answered, "but you will not eat any of it." We're in chapter 7 now. Now there was 4 men with leprosy at the entrance of the city gate. They said to each other, "Why should we stay here until we die? If we say we'll go into the city and the famine is there, we would die. And if we stay here, we would die. Let's go over to the camp of the Arameans and surrender. If they spare us, we live, and if they kill us, then we die." At dusk they got up and went to the camp of the Arameans. When they reached the edge of the camp, not a man was there, for the Lord had caused the Arameans to hear the sound of the chariots and horses and a great army, so that they said one to another, "Look, the king of the Israelites has hired the Hittite and the Egyptian kings to attack us." So they got up and fled in the dusk and abandoned their tents and their horses and donkeys. They left the camp and ran for their lives. The men who had leprosy reached the edge of the camp and entered one of the tents. They ate and they drank and carried away silver and gold and clothes, and they went off and hid them. They returned and entered another tent and took some things from it and hid them also. Then they said to each other, "We're not doing it right. This is the day of good news, and we're keeping it to ourselves. If we wait until daylight, punishment will take over us. Let's go at once and report this to the royal palace." So they went and called out to the city and the gatekeepers and told them, "We went to the Aramean camp, and not a man was there, not a sound of anyone, only tethered horses and donkeys, and the tents left just as they were." The gatekeepers shouted the news, and it was reported within the palace. The king got up in the night and said to his officers, "I will tell you what the Arameans have done to us. They know that we are starving, so they have left camp to hide in the countryside, thinking they will surely come out and we will take them alive and go into the city." One of the officers answered, "Have some men take 5 of the horses that are left in the city. Their plight might be like that of all Israel left here. Yet, yes, they will only be like the ones that Israel are doomed. So let us send them to find out what happened." So they selected 2 chariots with their horses, and the king sent after them the Aramean army. He commanded the drivers, "Go and find out what has happened." They followed them as far as the Jordan, and they found the whole road strewn with clothing and equipment that the Arameans had thrown away in their headlong flight. So the messengers returned and reported to the king. Then the people went out and plundered plundered the camp of the Arameans. So a seah of flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley sold for a shekel, as the Lord said. Now the king had put the officer whose arm he leaned on in charge of the gate, and the people trampled him in the gateway, and he died, just as the man of God foretold when the king came down to his house. It happened as the man of God said to the king, about this time tomorrow, a seah of flour will sell for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley will sell for a shekel at the gate of Samaria. The officer had said to the man of God, look, even if the Lord should open the floodgates of heaven, should this happen? And the man of God replied, you will see it with your own eyes, but you will not eat of it. And that's exactly what happened to him, for the people trampled him in the gateway, and he died. Hmm. Hmm. I don't think I want to add anything to that. So number 8. Now Elisha said to the woman whose son he restored to life, go away with your family and stay for a while wherever you can, because the Lord has decreed a famine in the land that will last 7 years. The woman proceeded to do as the man of God said. She and her family went away and stayed in the land of the Philistines 7 years. At the end of the 7 years, she came back from the land of the Philistines and went to the king to beg for her house and her land. The king was talking to Gehazi, the servant of the man of God, and said, tell me about the great things that Elisha has done. Just as Gehazi was telling the king about how Elisha restored the dead to the life, the woman whose son Elisha had brought back to life came to beg the king for her house and her land. Gehazi said, this is the woman, my lord, the king, and this is her son whom Elisha restored to life. The king asked the woman about it, and she told him. Then he assigned an official to her case and said to him, give back everything that belonged to her, including all the income from her land from the days that she left the country until now. It says, Hazael murders Ben-Hadad. Elisha went to Damascus, and Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram, was ill. The king was told that the man of God come all the way up here and said to Hazael, take gift with you to go meet the man of God. Consult the Lord through him and ask, will I recover from this illness? Hazael went to meet Elisha, taking with him a gift of 40 camel loads, all of the finest wares of Damascus. He went in and stood before him and said, your son, Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, has sent me to ask, will I recover from this illness? Elisha answered, go and say to him, you will certainly recover, but the Lord has revealed to me that he will in fact die. He stared at him with a fixed gaze until Hazael felt ashamed. Then the man of God began to weep. Why is my Lord weeping? Said Hazael. Because I know the harm that you will do to the Israelites. You will set fire to their fortified places, kill their young men with the sword, dash their little children to the ground, and whip open their pregnant women. Hazael said, how could your servant, a mere dog, accomplish such a feat? The Lord has shown me that you will become a king of Aram, answered Elisha. Then Hazael left Elisha and returned to his master. When Ben-Hadad asked, what did Elisha say to you? He said, he told me that you will certainly recover. But the next day he took a thick cloth, soaked it in water, and spread it over the king's face so that he died. And Hazael succeeded him as king. Jehoram, king of Judah. In the 5th year of Joram's son Ahab, king of Israel, when Jehoshaphat was the king of Judah, Jehoram, son of Jehoshaphat, began his reign as the king of Judah. He was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 8 years. He walked in the ways of the king of Israel, as the house of Ahab had done, for he married the daughter of Ahab. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Nevertheless, for the sake of his servant David, the Lord was not willing to destroy Judah. He had promised to maintain a land for David and his descendants forever. In the time of Jehoram, Edom rebelled against Judah and set up its own king. So Jehoram went to Zair with all of his chariots. The Edomites surrounded him and his chariot commanders, but he rose up and broke through the night. His army, however, fled back home. To this day, Edom has been in rebellion against Judah. Libnah revolted at the same time. As for the other events in Jehoram's reign and all he did, are they not written in the book of the annals at the kings of Judah? Jehoram rested with his fathers and was buried with them in the city of David, and Ahaziah, his son, succeeded him as king. Ahaziah, king of Judah. In the 12th year of Joram, son of Ahab, the king of Israel, Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, king of Judah, began to reign. Okay, so he's a son. Okay, so I think Jehoram's the bogus one. Oh, he walked in the ways Oh, but he still did evil in his eye. Okay, whatever. I'm gonna have to figure it out. So it says, Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 1 year. His mother's name was Athaliah, the granddaughter of Omri, the king of Israel. He walked in the ways of the house of Ahab and did evil in the eyes of the Lord, as the house of Ahab had done, for he was related by marriage to Ahab's family. Ahaziah went, maybe it's Ahaziah, went with Joram, son of Ahab, to war against Hazael, king of Aram, to Ramoth Gilead, and the Arameans wounded Joram. So the king of Joram returned to Jezreel to recover from the wounds that the Arameans had inflicted on him at Ramoth in his battle with Hazael, the king of Aram. Then Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, went to Jezreel to see Joram, the son of Ahab, because he had been wounded. Yeah, I'm looking struggling, boy. Let me just. I always do this in the middle of the reading, which is kind of like not good, but I'll be having to know where we need to be at. Read to 15. Dang, that's a lot of reading to go. Anyway, number 9. I don't think I have anything from 8, but whatever. So number 9, it says the prophet. Oh, actually, I do. I want to write down what Elisha said. So that was number 8. So Elisha says that Hazael will do well, bring disaster to Israel and do bad things. Okay, number 9. So it says, the prophet Elisha summoned a man from the company of the prophets and said to him, tuck your cloak into your belt and take this flask of oil with you to Ramoth Gilead. When you get there, look for Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat, and the son of Nimshi. Go to him and take him into the inner room. Then take the flask and pour oil over his head and declare, this is what the Lord says. I anoint you as king over Israel, and then open the door and run and don't delay. So the young man, the prophet, went to Ramoth Gilead, and when he arrived, he found the army of the soldiers sitting together. He said, I have a message for you, commander. For which of us? He said, for you, commander, he said, talking to Jehu. So it says, he got up and went to the house, and the prophet poured oil on Jehu's head and declared, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I anoint you the king over Israel's people. Over the Lord's people Israel. You are to destroy the house of Ahab, your master, and I will avenge the blood of my servants and the prophets and the blood of all the Lord's servants shed by Jezebel. The whole house of Ahab will perish, and I will cut off Ahab from every last male of Israel, slave or free. I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha of Ahijah. As for Jezebel, dogs will devour her on the plot of the ground of Jezreel, and no one will bury her. Oh, Jezebel. Then he opened the door and ran. When Jehu went out to his fellow officers, one of them asked, is everything all right? Why did this madman come to you? He said, you know the man of all sorts think, he says. He said, that's not true. Tell us. Here's what he told me. This is what the Lord says. I anoint you king over Israel. And they hurried and took their cloaks and spread them under him on the bare steps as they blew the trumpets and saw Jehu was king. So Jehu kills Joram and Ahaziah. So Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, conspired against Joram. He said, if this is the way you feel, don't let any of you think about the city to go until the news in Jezreel. Then he got into his chariot and rode to Jezreel because Joram was resting there, and Ahaziah, the king of Judah, had gone down to see him. When the lookout standing on the tower of Jezreel saw Jehu's troops approaching, he said, I see troops coming. Get a horseman, Joram ordered, and send him to meet them and ask, do you come in peace? The horseman rode off to meet Jehu and said, do you come in peace? He said, what do you have to do with peace? Fall in behind me. The lookout reported the messenger has reached him, but he isn't coming back. So the king sent out a second horseman, and when he came to him, he said, do you come in peace? And he said, what do you have to do with peace? Fall behind me. My own business, fall behind me. The lookout reported he has reached him, but he isn't coming back either. The driving The driving is like that of Jehu, the son of Nimshi. He drives like a madman. Hitch up my chariot, Joram ordered. And when it was hitched up, Joram, king of Israel, and Ahaziah, king of Judah, rode out, each in his own chariot, to meet Jehu. They met him at the plot of ground that belonged to Naboth the Jezreelite. And when Joram saw Jehu, he said, "Have you come in peace, Jehu?" He said, "How can there be peace as long as there is idolatry and witchcraft of your mother of Jezebel around?" Joram turned around and fled, calling out to Ahaziah, "Treachery, Ahaziah." Then he drew his bow and shot Joram between his shoulders. The arrow pierced his heart, and he slumped down in his chariot. Jehu said to Bidkar, his chariot officer, "Pick him up and throw him on the field that belonged to Naboth the Jezreelite. Remember how you and I were riding together in the chariots behind Ahab his father when the Lord made this prophecy about him? Yesterday I saw the blood of Naboth and the blood of his sons, declared the Lord, and I will surely make you pay for it on this plot of ground, declares the Lord. Now pick him up and throw him on that plot in accordance with the word of the Lord." When Ahaziah, king of Judah, saw what had happened, he fled up to the road of Beth Hagan. Jehu chased him, shouting, "Kill him too." They wounded him in his chariot on the way up to Jor near Iblim, but he escaped to Megiddo and died there. His servants took him by his chariot to Jerusalem and buried him with his fathers in the tomb of the city of David. Jezebel killed. Then Jehu went to Jezreel when Jezebel heard about it. She painted her eyes and arranged her hair to look out of the window as Jehu entered the gate. She said, "Have you come in peace, Zimri, you murderer of your master?" He looked up to the window and called out, "Who was on my side? Who?" Two or three eunuchs looked down at him. "Throw her down," Jehu said. So they threw her down, and some of her blood splattered the wall and the horses as they trampled her underfoot. Jehu went in and ate and drank. "Take care of that cursed woman and bury her, for she was a king's daughter." But when they went out to bury her, they found nothing except for her skull, her feet, and her hands. They went back to Jehu and said, "This is the word of the Lord that spoke through his servant Elisha to the Tibite. When the plot of the ground of Jezreel's dog will devour Jezebel's flesh, Jezebel's body will be like the refuse on the ground of the plot of Jezreel, so that no one will be able to say, 'This is Jezebel.'" Wow. So now we're in 10. Ahab's families killed. Now they were in Samaria, 70 sons of the sons of Ahab. So Jehu wrote letters and sent them to Samaria, to the officials of Jezreel, to the elders, and to the guardians of Ahab's children. He said, "As soon as this letter reaches you, since your master's sons are with you, you have chariots and horses of fortified cities and weapons. Choose the best and most worthy of your master's sons and set him on his father's throne. Then fight for your master's house." But they were terrified and said, "If two kings could not resist him, how can we?" So the palace administrator, the city's governor, and the elders and the guardians sent this message to Jehu: "We are your servants, and we will do anything you say. We will not appoint anyone as king. You do whatever you think is best." Then Jehu wrote them a second letter saying, "If you are on my side and will obey me, take the heads of your master's sons and come with me in Jezreel by this time tomorrow." Now the royal princes, 70 of them, were with the leading men of the city who were rearing them. When the letter arrived, these men took the princes and slaughtered all 70 of them. They put their heads in a basket and sent them to Jehu in Jezreel. When the messenger arrived, he told Jehu, "They have brought back heads of the princes." Then Jehu ordered, "Put them in two piles at the entrance of the city gate until morning." The next morning, Jehu went out. He stood before all the people and said, "You are innocent. It was I who conspired against my master and killed him. But who killed all these? Know then that not a word of the Lord that has spoken against the house of Ahab will fail. The Lord has done what he said, what he promised through his servant Elijah." So Jehu killed everyone in Jezreel who remained in the house of Ahab, as well as his chief men and his close friends and his priests, leaving them no survivors. Jehu then set out and went to Samaria as Beth Eked, the shepherds. He met some of the relatives of Ahaziah, the king of Judah, and asked, "Who are you?" They said, "We are the relatives of Ahaziah, and we have come down to greet the families of the king and the queen mother." "Take them alive," he ordered. And they took them alive and slaughtered them by the well of Beth Eked. For 42 men, he left no survivors. After he left there, he came upon Jehonadab, son of Rechab, who was on his way to meet him. Jehu greeted him and said, "Are you in accord with me as I am with you? He said, I am. He said, if so, give me your hand. And so he did. And Jehu helped him into the chariot. And Jehu said, come with me and see my zeal for the Lord. And he came with him riding in his chariot. When Jehu came to Samaria, he killed all of those who were left of Ahab's family, and he destroyed them according to the word of the Lord spoken to Elijah. Ministers of Baal killed. Then Jehu brought all the people together and said to him, Ahab served Baal a little, and Jehu served him much. Now summon all the prophets of Baal and all his ministers and all of his priests and see that no one is missing, because I'm going to hold a great sacrifice for Baal. Anyone who fails to come will no longer live. But Jehu was acting deceptively in order to destroy the ministers of Baal. Jehu said, call an assembly in honor of Baal, and they proclaimed it. Then he sent the word throughout Israel, and all the ministers of Baal came, not one stayed away. They crowded into the temple of Baal until it was full from one end to another. Then Jehu said to the keeper of the wardrobe, bring robes for all the ministers of Baal. So he brought robes for all of them. Then Jehu and Jehoiada, the son of Rechab, went to the temple of Baal, and Jehu said to the ministers of Baal, look around and see that no servants of the Lord are here with you, only ministers of Baal. So they went in to make sacrifices and burnt offerings. Now Jehu had posted 80 men outside with this warning: if one of you lets any of the men I am placing in your hands escape, it will be your life for his life. As soon as Jehu had finished making the burnt offerings, he ordered the guards and officials, go in and kill them, let no one escape. So they cut them down with the sword. The guards and officers threw bodies out, and they entered the inner shrine of the temple of Baal. They brought the sacred stone out of the temple of Baal and burned it. They demolished the sacred stone of Baal and tore down the temple of Baal and that people use for a latrine to this day. So Jehu destroyed Baal worship in Israel. However, he did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit, which was worshiping the golden calves at Bethel and Dan. The Lord said to Jehu, because you have done well in accomplishing what is right in my eyes and have done the house of Ahab, I have all that I had in mind to do. Your descendants will sit on the throne of Israel for 4 generations. Yet Jehu was not careful to keep the law of the Lord, the God of Israel, with all of his heart. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, which he caused Israel to commit. In those days, the Lord began to reduce the size of Israel. Hazael overpowered Israel throughout their territory, east of the Jordan, in all the land of Gilead, from Aroer to the Anon George through Gilead to Bashan. As for the other events of Jehu's reign, all he did and all his achievements, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Jehu rested with his fathers and was buried in Samaria, and Jehoaz, his son, succeeded him as a king. The time that Jehu reigned over Israel and Samaria was 28 years. I want to point something out. Just because we are doing what God tells us, and I'll put in parentheses like a certain mission, doesn't mean that we ignore / forget to live for him. So basically he was saying like, yeah, you followed my directions with, killing Ahab. Sorry, I'm like moving around. You followed You followed my directions with killing Ahab and his family, and you did this, but you didn't keep, and you killed the worshippers of Baal, whatever, but you didn't keep you didn't keep commands. Like, you still have people worshiping, golden calves or whatever. So we just gotta make sure that even if we're following God in one way, that we're still, living for him and not just following, a couple rules or whatever. I'm not a lot to read, bro. Okay, so it says, when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she proceeded to destroy the whole royal family. But Jehosheba, the daughter of the king of Jehoram, the sister of Ahaziah, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the royal princes who were about to be murdered. She put him and his nurse. She put him and his nurse in the bedroom to hide him from Athaliah, so he was not killed. He remained hidden with his nurse in the temple of the Lord for 6 years, while Athaliah ruled the land. In the seventh year of Jehoiada, sent for the commanders of the units of the hundreds and the Karites, the guards that brought them to him in the temple of the Lord. He made a covenant with them and put them under the oath at the temple of the Lord, and he showed them the king's son. He commanded them, saying, "This is what you are to do. You who are in the three companies that are going to do the duty of the Sabbath. The third of you guarding the royal palace, the third at the sword gate, and the third at the gate behind the guard who takes turn guarding the temple. And you are in the two other companies that normally go off to the Sabbath duty are going to guard the temple for the king. Station yourself around the king, each of the men with his weapon in hand. Anyone who approaches your wings must be put to death. Stay close to the king wherever he goes." The commanders of units of hundreds did as Jehoiada, the priest, ordered. Each one took his men, those who were going on duty on the Sabbath and those who were going off duty, and came to Jehoiada the priest. Then he gave the commanders the spears and shields that had belonged to the King David that were in the temple of the Lord. The guards, each of them with a weapon in his hand, stationed themselves around the king near the altar in the temple on the south side of the north side of the temple. Jehoiada brought the king's son and put a crown on him and presented him with a copy of the covenant and proclaimed him the king. They anointed him, and the people clapped their hands and shouted, "Long live the king." When Athaliah heard the noise made by the guards of the people, she went to the people of the temple of the Lord. She looked and saw that there was a king standing by the pillar, as the custom was. The officers and the trumpets were beside the king, and all the people in the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets. Then Athaliah tore her robes and called out, "Treason, treason!" Jehoiada the priest ordered the commanders of the units of hundreds who were in charge of the troops, "Bring her out between the ranks and put the sword of anyone who follows her." For the priest had said she must not be put to death in the temple of the Lord. So they seized her, and she reached a place where the horses entered the palace grounds, and there she was put to death. Jehoiada then made a covenant between the Lord and the king and the people that they should be the Lord's people. He also made a covenant between the king and the people. All the people of the land went to the temple of Baal and tore it down. They smashed altars and idols to pieces and killed Mattan, the priest of Baal, in front of the altars. Then Jehoiada the priest posted guards at the temple of the Lord, and he took with him the commanders of the hundreds, the Karites, the guards, and all the people of the land, and together they brought down the king from the temple of the Lord and went to the palace, entering by way of the gates of the guards. The king then took his place on the royal throne, and all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet because Athaliah had been slain with the sword of the palace. Joash was 7 years old when he began to reign. Boom. So it says Joash repairs the temple. In the 7th year of Jehu, Joash became the king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 40 years. His mother's name was Zibiah, and she was from Beersheba. Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord all the years that Jehoiada the priest instructed him. The high places, however, were not removed. The people continued to offer sacrifices and burn incense there. Joash said to the priests, "Collect all the money that is being brought as sacred offerings to the temple of the Lord, the money collected in the census, the money received from personal vows, and the money brought voluntarily to the temple. Let every priest receive the money from the treasurers, and let it be used to repair whatever damage is found in the temple." But by the 23rd year of King Joash, the priests still had not repaired the temple. Therefore, King Joash summoned Jehoiada the priest and other priests and asked them, "Why aren't you repairing the damage unto the temple? Take no money for your treasurers, but hand it over to repairing the temple." The priests agreed that they would not collect any more money from the people and that they would repair the temple themselves. Jehoiada the priest took a chest and bored a hole in its lid. He placed in it beside the altar on the right of the entrance. As one entered the temple of the Lord, the priest who had guarded the entrance put into the chest all the money that was brought to the temple of the Lord. Whenever they saw there was a large amount of money in the chest, the royal secretary and the high priest came, counted the money that had been brought to the temple of the Lord, and put it in bags. When the amount had been determined, they had given the money to the men and appointed to supervise the work of the temple. With it, they paid those who worked in the temple of the Lord, the carpenters and builders and masons and stone cutters. They purchased timber and dressed stones for the repair of the temple of the Lord and met all the other expenses for restoring the temple. The money brought into the temple was not spent for making silver basins, wick trimmers, sprinkling bowls, trumpets, or any other articles of God, of gold or silver for the temple of the Lord. It was paid to the workmen who used it to repair the temple. They did not require an accounting for those who gave the money to pay the workers because they acted with complete honesty. The money was brought from guilt offerings and sin offerings was not brought into the temple of the Lord. It belonged to the priests. About this time, Hazael, king of Aram, went up and attacked Jath, I don't know, and captured it. Then he turned and attacked Jerusalem. But Joash, the king of Judah, took all the sacred objects dedicated to his fathers, Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, and Ahaziah, the king of Judah, all the gifts he himself had dedicated to the gold found in the treasures of the temple of the Lord and of the royal place, and sent them to Hazael, the king of Aram, then withdrew from Jerusalem. As for the other events of the reign of Joash and all that he did are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? His officials conspired against him and assassinated him at Beth Millo on the road down to Silla. The officials who murdered him were Jozabad, son of Shimeath, and Jehozabad, son of Shomer. He died and was buried with his fathers in the king of David, and Amaziah, his son, succeeded him as king. Number 13. Ugh. My back definitely isn't messing up so much today because it's at nighttime, so that's good. So it says Jehoaz, the king of Israel. This is 13. It says, in the 23rd year of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, the king of Judah, Jehoaz, the son of Jehu, became the king of Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 17 years. He did evil. Oh no, this must be a good one. Right? Yeah, because Jehu was good. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, following the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which he caused Israel to commit, and he did not turn away from them. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel, and for a long time he kept them under the power of Hazael, the king of Aram, and Ben-Hadad his son. Then Jehoahaz sought the Lord's favor, and the Lord listened to him, for he saw how severely the king of Aram was oppressing Israel. The Lord provided a deliverer for Israel, and they escaped from the power of Aram. So the Israelites lived in their own homes as they had before, but they had not turned away from the sins of the house of Jeroboam, which he had caused them to commit. They continued, probably the golden calf, in them. Also, the Asherah pole remained standing in Samaria. Nothing had been left in the army of Jehoaz except for 50 horsemen, 10 chariots, and 10,000 foot soldiers. But the king of Aram had destroyed the rest and made them like the dust of the threshing time. As for the other events of the reign of Jehoaz, all he had did in his achievements, are they not written in the book of the annals of the king of Israel? Jehoaz rested with his fathers and was buried in Samaria, and Jehoash his son succeeded him as king. We're almost done now. Okay, it says, in the 37th year of Jehoash, king of Judah, Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, became king in Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 16 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord and did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which caused Israel to commit sins, and he continued in them. As for the events of the reign of Jehoaz and all he did in his achievements, including his war against Amaziah, the king of Judah, are they not written in the book of the annals of the king of Israel? Jehoash rested in his father, and Jeroboam succeeded him on the throne. Jehoash was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel. Now Elisha was suffering from illness, which he had died. Jehoash, the king of Israel, went down to see him and wept over him. My father, he cried, the chariots and the horsemen of Israel. Elisha said, get a bow and some arrows, and he did so. He said, take the bow in your hands, and he said to the king of Israel, when he had taken it, Elisha put his hands on the king's hand and said, open the east window. He said, open it, and he said, shoot, and he shot. The Lord's arrow of victory, the arrow of victory over Aram. Elisha declared, you will completely destroy the Arameans at effect. Then he said, take the arrows, and the king took them, and Elisha told him, strike the ground, and he struck it 3 times and stopped. The man of God was angry with him and said, you should have struck the ground 5 or 6 times. Then you would have defeated Aram and completely destroyed it. Now you would have defeated only 3 times. Elisha died and was buried. Now the Moabite raiders used to enter the country every spring. Once, while some of the Israelites were burying a man, suddenly they saw a band of raiders, so they threw the man's body into Elisha's tomb. When the body touched Elisha's bones, the man came to life and stood up on his feet, period. Hazael, king of Aram, oppressed Israel throughout the reign of Jehoahaz, but the Lord was gracious to them and had compassion and showed concern for them because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. To this day, he had been unwilling to destroy them or banish them from his presence. Hazael, king of Aram, died, and Ben-Hadad, his son, succeeded him as king. Then Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz, recaptured Ben-Hadad, the son of Hazael, the king, the towns that he taken in the battle from his father. 3 times Jehoash defeated him, and so he recovered the Israelite towns. Number 14. Oh, we can do it, y'all. We can do it. Number 14. In the second year of Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz, the king of Israel, Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he became king. He reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother was Jehoiada, and she was from Jerusalem. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, but not as his father David had done. In everything he followed the example of his father Joash. In the high places, however, they were not removed, and the people continued to offer burnt offerings and burn incense there. After the kingdom was firmly in his grasp, he executed the officials who had murdered his father the king. Yet he did not put the sons of the assassins to death, in accordance with what was written in the book of the law of Moses, where the Lord commanded, fathers shall not be put to death for their children, nor children put to death for their fathers. Each is to die for his own sins. He was the one who defeated 10,000 Edomites and the son of Saul and captured Selah in the battle, calling it Joktheel, the name of it that it has to this day. Then Amaziah sent messengers to Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, king of Israel, with this challenge: come meet me face to face. But Jehoash, the son of the king of Israel, replied to Amaziah, the king of Judah, a thistle in the Lebanon sent a message to the cedar of Lebanon, give your daughter to my son in marriage. Then a wild beast in Lebanon came along and trampled the thistle underfoot. You have indeed defeated Edom, and now you are arrogant. Glory in your victory, but stay at home. Why ask for trouble and cause your own downfall, that of Judah also? Amaziah, however, would not listen. So Joash, the king of Israel, attacked, and he and Amaziah, the king of Judah, faced each other at Beth Shemesh in Judah. Judah was routed by Israel, and every man fled to his home. Jehoash, king of Israel, captured Amaziah, king of Judah, and the son of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, in Beth Shemesh. Then Joash went to Jerusalem and broke down the wall of Jerusalem through the Ephraim gate to the corner gate, a section about 600 feet long. He took all the gold and the silver and all the articles found in the temple of the Lord and in the treasuries of the Lord's palace. He took hostages and returned to Samaria. As for the other events of the reign of Jehoash and what he did in his achievements, including his war against Amaziah, the king of Judah, are they not written in the book of the annals of the king of Israel? Jehoash rested with his father and was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel, and Jeroboam his son succeeded him as king. Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, lived for 15 years after the death of Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel. As for the other events of Amaziah's reign, they are not written in the book of annals at the king of Judah. They conspired against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish, but they sent men after Lachish and killed him there. He was brought back by horse and was buried in Jerusalem with his fathers, the city of David. Then all the people of Judah took Azariah, who was 16 years old, and made him king in place of his father Amaziah. He was the one who rebuilt Elath and restored it to Judah after Amaziah rested with his fathers. Jeroboam II, the king of Israel. In the 15th year of Amaziah, the son of Joash, king of Judah, Jeroboam, son of Jehoash, king of Israel, became king in Samaria, and he reigned for 41 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord and did not turn away from any of the sins that Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which he caused Israel to commit. He was the one who restored the boundaries of Israel from Lebo Hamath to the Sea of Arabah, in accordance with the word of the Lord, the God of Israel, spoken through his servant of Jonah, the son of Amittai, the prophet from Jath-Hepher. The Lord seen how how bitterly everyone in Israel, whether slaves or free, was suffering, and there was no one to help them. And since the Lord had not said that he would blot out the name of Israel under the heavens, he saved them by the hand of Jeroboam the son of Jehoash. As for the other events of Jeroboam's reign and all he did, his military achievements, including how he recovered for Israel from Damascus and Hamath, which belonged to Yahweh, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Jeroboam rested with his fathers, the king of Israel, and Zechariah his son succeeded him as a king. Whew. It's a whole lot of. All right, this is the last chapter. Let's get it. So it says Azariah and the king of Judah. It says, in the 27th year of Jeroboam, the king of Israel, Azariah, son of Amaziah, the king of Judah, began to reign. He was 16 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 52 years. His mother's name was Jehoiada, and she was from Jerusalem. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father Amaziah had done, and the high places were, however, not removed, and the people continued to offer sacrifices and burnt offerings and incense there. Wow. The Lord afflicted the king with leprosy until the day that he died, and he lived in a separate house. Jotham, the king's son, had charge of the palace and governed the people of the land. As for the other events, Azariah's reign and all he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the king of Judah? Azariah rested with his fathers and was buried near them in the city of David, and Jotham his son succeeded him as king. Zechariah, the king of Israel. In the 38th reign of Azariah, the king of Judah, Zechariah, the son of Jeroboam, became king of Israel in Samaria, and he reigned there 6 months, and he did evil in the eyes of the Lord as his fathers had done. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which he caused Israel to commit. Shallum, son of Jabesh, conspired against Zechariah, and he attacked him in front of the people and assassinated him and succeeded him as king. The other events of Zechariah's reign are written in the book of the annals of the king of Israel. So the word of the Lord spoken to Jehu was fulfilled. Your descendants will sit on the throne to the 4th generation. Shallum, the king of Israel. Shallum, son of Jabesh, became king in the 39th year of Uzziah, the king of Judah, and he reigned in Samaria 1 month. Then Menahem, son of Jadi, went to Tirzah up to Samaria, and he killed Shallum, the son of Jabesh, in Samaria, and assassinated him and succeeded him as king. The other events in Shallum's reign and the conspiracy he led are written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel. At that time, Menahem started out from Tirzah, attacked Tifsa and everyone in the city in its vicinity because they refused to open their gates, and he sacked Tifsa and ripped open all the pregnant women. Like we heard. Says Menahem, the king of Israel. In the 39th year of Azariah, king of Judah, Menahem, son of Jadi, became king of Israel, and he reigned in Samaria for 10 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord during his entire reign, and he did not turn away from his sins. Jeroboam, son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit. Then Pul, the king of Assyria, invaded the land, and Menahem gave him 1,000 talents of silver to gain his support and strengthen his hold on the kingdom. Menahem exacted this money from Israel. Every wealthy man had to contribute 50 shekels of silver to be given to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria withdrew and stayed in the land no longer. As for the other events of Menahem's reign and all he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the king of Israel? And Menahem rested with his fathers, and Pekahiah, his son, succeeded him as king. Pekahiah is a king of Israel. In the 50th year of Azariah, the king of Judah, Pekahiah, the son of Menahem, became king in Israel of Samaria. He reigned for 2 years, and he did evil in the eyes of the Lord. One of his chief officers, Pekah, the son of Remaliah, conspired against him, taking 50 men of Gilead with him and assassinated him along with Argabo and Uriah in the citadel of the royal palace in Samaria. So Pekah killed Pekahiah and succeeded him as king. Are they not written in the books of the annals, the king of Israel? Boom. Then it says, Pekah, the king of Israel. In the 52nd year, same thing. He reigned for 20 years. He did evil. In that time, Tilgath-Pileser, the king of Assyria, came and took Ijon, Abel, Beth Makkah, Joniah, Kadesh, and Hazor. He took Gilead and Galilee, including the land of Naphtali, and okay. And deported the people to Assyria. Then Hoshea, the son of Elah, conspired against Pekah, the son of Remaliah. He attacked and assassinated him and succeeded him as king in the 20th year of Jotham of Hosea. Then it's the same question. Do you not see, blah, blah, blah. Then it goes in the 2nd year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, the king of Israel. Jotham, the son of Uzziah, the king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 16 years. His mother's name was Jerusha, the king of Zadok. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father Uzziah had done. Period. Thank you, somebody. The high places, however, were not removed, and the people continued to offer sacrifices and burnt offerings there. Jotham rebuilt the upper gate of the temple of the Lord. As for the other events of Jotham's reign and what he did, are they not written in the book of the Annals? Jotham rested with his fathers and was buried with them in the city of David, in the city of his father, in the house. His son succeeded him as king. So again, kings / people are temporary. Also, I'm gonna say, like, every time, like, they wouldn't follow their fathers, they would follow their fathers, but the high places were still in place. It was like, y'all gotta do something different. I'm talking about to the leaders. Completely demolish the quote unquote bad. Follow God completely, thoroughly. Because I feel like if they would have just not had the high places and not had people burning offering, like sacrifices and offerings and stuff, then it wouldn't even have been all that bad. But y'all was just doing a lot for God. And he was like, yeah, no, chill. Because y'all doing a lot. So I'm just gonna Google, like, why does it keep asking if the stories are in the annals of the kings in the Bible? I hope this is good enough. What is the book of the annals of the king of Israel? Okay. It appears 33 times in the book of First and Second Kings. And then it's found another 2 times in Second Chronicles. It says the book of the Chronicles. Okay, that kind of helped, but not really. So it's supposed to be the book of Tobit? Tobit? It's a non-canonical work preferred in the Hebrew Bible. So we gotta find it in the Hebrew Bible, I guess. Anyway, I hope you guys learned something. Today was relatively quick. I was really trying to get through it. We're gonna catch up. So yeah, hope you have a good day. I will see y'all tomorrow, hopefully a couple times tomorrow. But I'll see y'all tomorrow. So have a good day, and I'll see you later.